Welcome back to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction. Last night, we learned about the first breakthrough we must have in order to experience an unchained life. And tonight, we continue this journey and learn the next step necessary to experience freedom. But first, we want to make sure that everybody is registered. Please go to the website on your screen. Go to unchainedevent.org/Bryant/register. Everyone's information is confidential and will only be used during this series and to inform you of future events. Once you've registered, you'll receive an email or text each day reminding you of that evening's presentation. With that daily reminder, you will also receive a link that for that evening's presentation. Click on that link and you will be entered for our nightly giveaway. So if you've already registered, you should have received a link today. Make sure you click on that link to be entered in the giveaway tonight. You only have to register once, but to be entered into that evening's presentation, make sure you click on the link. Each night we'll be giving away a signed copy of our speaker, Richie Halversen's book, The Darkness Will Not Overcome. But you do have to click on that day's link in order to be entered. This lets us know who is joining us on this particular night. So if you have not registered yet, make sure you do so right now at the link on your screen, unchainedevent.org/Bryant/register. Now last night, we had people join us from all over, and we would love to hear from where you are joining us from again tonight. Please write wherever you're joining us from in the comment section of this live stream. We want to hear from you. Whether you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook, please make sure you hit that like button and share button. Everyone struggles with addiction on some level, and we all know someone who either struggles with addiction or we know someone who knows someone who struggles with addiction. So please help us get the message out. Tonight, Matt Floyd is joining us to share his story of how he became unchained. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're willing to be a little vulnerable here with us this evening and share your story with us and how your life has changed as a result of this experience. So Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe something before you started to struggle with these addictions.
Basically, I was the All-American kid, baseball player and football and, hunting and fishing and just a good kid. The only thing is I grew up in a separated home. My mother and father had a divorce. I don't even remember when that was. I had another sister and a brother, but I barely remember them before, I wound up with my dad. My dad had full custody of me. He brought me up in church and was always a good father. So I had a good childhood.
That's wonderful. Tell us a little bit about your addiction and where it all started.
Well, my addiction was alcohol, and it all started middle school, I would say, around 12, 13 years old, me and the friends from the neighborhood would, smoke cigarettes or, steal some of someone's mother's wine or something like that and sip on it. And but whenever that happened, I kind of liked the whole wine part, that and of course marijuana was very popular whenever I was younger, very popular thing. So I tried that, but I really liked drinking.
Tell us a little bit about how this addiction progressed and, when you started realizing that you had a problem.
Well, it progressed as I got into high school and got into bigger parties and things like that, and I kind of was, I'd get good buzzed, and I'd be the life of the party, the class clown. I got along with everybody. It was just I felt like we were just having the time of our lives. And I just took one thing to another extreme and made it an everyday thing instead of it being, on the weekend or something like that. It would turn into an everyday thing. And then when I'd gotten in trouble for underage consumption of alcohol, and was put in jail for that, and then that started a pattern in my life, and I would wind up drinking at some party, and then get caught drinking if I was underage, and go to jail for that. And then when I was of age, by then, whenever the cops would show up to the party, it's because, the party guy wound up being the mean guy, wound up getting in a fight with someone or something like that. And, or sometimes the cops would just come by to check on us, and I would be a smart aleck, and not the smartest thing to do, but
No.
when it is alcohol, you're not very, very smart at that time. So I'd wind up in jail for that. I knew I was going to lose that battle, so I had no idea why I always fought that one, but I always did. I think it was just, for some reason, I didn't like authority, I guess, over me. I always felt like I should be in charge of me,
Tell us about your father. How did he play? What role did he play in your experience?
My dad was a good Christian man. He was a hard-working man. I know that he wished he could have spent more time with me, because I know that he worked all the time. But I think that the reason he did that is because he felt like that was his job, was to provide for me, was just to keep working. He's always been that way. But my dad was a real good man. I remember I would always try, "Dad, have you found my mom? Have you found my mom?" And he'd say, "Yes, I'll look for her." And he'd say, "Son, I found her." And then I'd get a phone call, and I'd talk to Mama, and then Mama's supposed to meet with us next weekend at a store, convenience store. I know that my dad would get off work, pack all my things, and get me in the car and take me to the convenience store. And I remember just sitting there on the edge of my seat, just looking out, the window, waiting what kind of car is she supposed to be in, things like that. Just really excited to see my mom. My dad would sit there until I fell asleep, because my mother would never show up, because my mother was a drug addict. She was fighting demons of her own at that time. And I always thought that might have been a big issue in my life, as a young boy, just my whole life constantly searching for a mother's love. I think that some reason that always pops in my head. I was always looking for that mother's love, and felt like I never did get it, but really I did have it. I just wasn't looking in the right spot. My dad had a very good wife. And
now you told us that you had some experiences with the law and going to jail. What happened when you called your father, and told him where you were?
The first time, I'd already been in trouble. I was on probation before I got caught drinking. I was on probation just for I left school, and I thought I could walk home, and I was going to take a shortcut and go through the woods. Well, I thought it was just like in between two streets, a little block or something. It wasn't. I got lost, and I finally made it out. And then by the time I made it home, my dad had done called the police and said he's done run away from home. So
wow.
They wound up taking me in, and I couldn't convince him that, Dad, no, I just got lost in the woods. He would not believe it because of all the other things I'd always lied about and done. So he would not believe it. He says, I don't know where you were. He says, I'm not even going to worry about it. You're here, you're safe, but you're in trouble. You know, of course, he grounded me for quite some time. But when I got arrested, for underage consumption of alcohol, I remember, man, I dread calling Daddy, you know, for your first phone call. And I said, man, who else am I going to call? And back then, you had everybody's number memorized in your head. We didn't have cell phones then, so you had to just remember everybody's number. So I called home, and my dad said, hello, and I said, Daddy, it's Matthew. I'm in jail. What are you in jail for? I got caught drinking. You do the crime, you do the time. Hung the phone up. So I knew right then, never call Dad when you go to jail because it's not going to do you a bit of good. He always gave me tough love. He always told me an important thing too. My dad never left home without telling me that he loved me. He never, even if he was mad, he would say, I'll be right back, I love you, no matter what. And I know my dad's always loved me, no matter what, but the tough love, he gave me that, and I'm looking back now, I'm grateful for every time he did give me tough love. And I think it took a while, but those things sank in finally later on in life.
Tell us about when you realized that, you know what, you needed to make a change in your life.
Well, okay. I knew that things were getting out of hand with my drinking because, you know, I tried a lot of drugs too, but I noticed I always had a drink in my hand, and so that was my thing. But it got so bad that whenever I did drink, my objective was to get so drunk that I had to crawl to bed. So if I walked and staggered, that wasn't good enough. You know, I'd try again the next night, and I'd try to crawl to bed. Then it got to the point where that didn't happen once or twice a week. That didn't happen. I mean, that took months for me to get there, and everything had to work out. I had to have liquor involved with it, you know, besides beer, in order to get to that point. And I would wake up in the morning just shaking like a leaf. I mean, just shaking. And that's the first thing I would do was drink, because I just had to knock those shakes off. And then, you know, I would drink 4 or 5 and then go to work. So I was a functioning alcoholic. But I knew that at that time, like, dude, something's got to change. I'm gonna drink myself to death probably, you know. I'd done been involved in countless car accidents. Should have died several times, but I knew that that God had saved me in those car wrecks. I was like, that was a miracle. I mean, family members were telling me, that's a miracle you're still here, you know. I went off a 150-foot embankment in a convertible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that one before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my brother-in-law was with me. He was driving. I was in the passenger seat, but yeah, we both survived that.
Wow.
I was thrown from the car, and he stayed in the car, and a tree had stopped the car, and how he didn't get I seen the tree stop the car, but I don't how he didn't get killed. I have no clue because it seemed like it hit right there where he was sitting. But God saved him, just protected him, and protected me too. Because I just closed my eyes. I knew that was it.
Wow.
But it wasn't. God saved us. He took care of us.
So you told me about a dream you had. Tell us about the dream.
Okay. Well, the dream came later in life when I was trying to change everything and quit drinking so much. And
how easy was that for you when you were trying to do that?
I would try to cut back. You know what I mean? Let's just say, okay, I drank at least 30 beers a day. That was a minimum. I went and tried to do like 12 a day or so, Didn't cut it. I mean, I usually drank that by about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, so it's pretty difficult to do that on your own.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. It just, it always, like, man, I'm just going to try to drink so many. And then it just turned into, I had to have them all.
Wow.
So doing it on my own, it couldn't be done. I tried so many different ways, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. And then before I had that dream.
Yes.
One second. Before I had that dream, whenever I was out partying and stuff for years, when I went to lay down, I was telling you I'd crawl to bed. Every night when I laid down, I'd hear a voice, a little still small voice would say, if you was to die in your sleep, you would not enter the kingdom of heaven.
Mm.
And I was a young boy who grew up in church, and I thought, well, yes, I would enter the kingdom of heaven. I made that decision in first grade.
Mm.
And that's how I looked at it. I thought that belief meant that's something I had chose to do or chose to believe. It was like a multiple choice question. Hey, got it, passed that class, I'm moving on.
Mm.
I didn't realize what belief really was. So I argued with that voice for years. So go later on in life, after I had left my hometown and come up this way in order to get away from people, still trying to quit. I was laying in bed, and I was having I went to sleep, but I was having a conversation with the guy in my dream. And it's as real as me and you sitting here talking right now.
Yes.
It was it was so real. But I was talking to the guy, and I looked at him, and I seen his face light up. And when his face lit up, I seen his arm go up. And when I seen his arm go up, I knew he was pointing. And he was just looking so high up. And he goes, "Oh, it's Jesus Christ." And I knew it just by the brightness on his face. I was like, that's Jesus coming. I closed my eyes. I dared not to look. I ran. And that scripture in my mind ran through, they will run to the mountains and call for the rocks to fall down upon them.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew then that in my heart I was not saved. I knew I wasn't. And then I woke up. And when I woke up, I thought Jesus had come back. I'm done. It's over. And I looked around. I said, "Oh, but the room's still here." So I ran outside. And I looked up and I seen the stars. I said, "Okay, the world's still here." the world's still here. And I heard that still small voice tell me, Matthew, I have saved your life countless times. I have kept you from harm. I have kept you from going to prison for your entire life. But the next time you go out drinking and having your little parties and having fun, and something happens, that's it. You're done. I will not save you anymore. This is your last chance. And that's whenever I just said, I'm yours. And I gave my life to the Lord that day. And
What happened with your urges after that?
He took them away.
Wow.
My alcohol was no longer an issue. I didn't want to be around it or anything like that, but I didn't have the cravings to just wake up. I mean, I woke up, I didn't have no shakes. I mean, it was unreal. I mean, doctors had told me that you just can't do that. So, I mean, if you give something to God and He takes it, it's gone. There's no taking it back.
Wow. So what's your so how do you let God lead more in your life? Like how do you get to know Him better?
Well, in order to get to know the Lord better, I think you need to spend a lot of time in prayer. But the way to really get to know Him is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So how do you get to know the Word? By being in the Word, studying the Word. I mean, even if you're on the road driving, you can listen to the Word. You can listen to others talk about the Word. You just try to keep that the center of your life and try to focus on Him. And the world will try to distract you and it will attack you, but you need to always just bring your mind back to Him, and everything will be all right.
That's awesome. So if you had to say one more thing to our audience here who may be struggling with some type of addiction, what would you encourage them with?
I'd encourage you, first of all, to get in the Word. Stay in the Word. Pray. But most of all, whatever issue you're having in life, whatever addiction you have, truly give it to the Lord. You can't give Him that addiction and then later on try to take it back and say, well, I'll fix it. Let me do it this way. You need to do it God's way. However God wants you to do it is how you need to do it. So you need to give God your addiction, give God your problems, and He will solve them. But you have to let Him take it. You've got to let Him take it.
Wow. Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your story with us. Now, don't forget to write your questions for Matt in the comment section of this video, because after this, we will have a Q&A where we'll answer a few of those questions. Matt is really excited about answering those questions for you. And as soon as Richie concludes his message for today, we will be back for Matt's answer to some of these questions. At this time, Richie Halversen is going to share with us the next breakthrough we need to begin living an unchained life.
Welcome back to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction. So far in our journey, we've seen how life can possess you. All kinds of demons. People have debt problems, and they've got money problems and anger problems, and you name it. We all have problems. But the importance of getting honest about those problems is where the journey of recovery can begin. Once I got honest about my addiction, that's when I started being able to get into the solution and what I could do for that problem. So once we can finally admit the problem, that's when we're able to get into the solution. I've often heard the first 3 steps of the 12 steps summed up like this. I can't, right? That's the honesty part. That's the problem. I can't do it. I can't stop. He can. That's the hope. That's the belief that someone bigger than us can help us. And then the third step is, I think I'll let him. So I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And once we start to identify and get honest about the problem, that's when we are able to gain some freedom. One day I was reading Mark's gospel and I ran into an interesting verse that just really jumped out at me. In Mark 6:5, it says that Jesus could do no mighty work there. It jumped out at me because Jesus was always doing mighty works and miracles. In fact, right before this, Jesus brings someone back from the dead. So, the question is, and why it jumped out at me, is why could Jesus not do any mighty work here? Well, let's do a little bit of background. Matthew 13:58, it says, because of their unbelief. Friends, we've got to believe that our solution is bigger than our problem. We've got to believe that God is bigger, that God's power is bigger than our weakness, that His forgiveness is greater than anything that you may have done or any sin you may have committed. Hebrews 11:6 says, whoever would draw near to God has to believe that He exists and that He rewards those who seek Him. So we won't even come to a power greater than ourselves if we don't believe He can help us. And so that's where belief comes in. You can't have a breakthrough and live an unchanged life without belief. In Matthew 17:18 through 20, it says, Jesus rebuked the demon and it came out of him. Right? We looked at that in the first session. The boy who was healed instantly. And then the disciples came. Jesus privately said, why could we not cast him out? And He said to them, because of your little faith, your little belief. Does the size of your hope match the size of your problem? Luke 18:25, it says, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. And so what Jesus is doing here is He's comparing salvation to an impossibility. A camel can't go through the eye of a needle. It's going to take a miracle, basically, for a rich person to be saved. Now, often we assume Jesus is saying that it's extra hard for rich people to be saved. That is not what Jesus is saying. But during this time and place, people falsely believed that prosperity, that wealth, was a sign of God's love and providence. And that's why when Jesus says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to be saved, people are like, wait a second. You know, if it's impossible for good people, because they thought anybody who had prosperity and wealth, they were the good saved people. If it's impossible for good saved people, what hope is there for us? But then Jesus gets to the solution in verse 27. He says, what is impossible with us is possible with God. You know, I can't, He can. It's impossible for a drug addict to stop using. But you see, what is impossible for us is possible for God. It is impossible for some of us to stop going to that website, but what is impossible for us is possible for God. It is impossible to forgive someone who may have hurt you or abused you, but what is impossible for us is possible for God. I know we all know those people. For some people, it seems like to be nice. Come on, that's going to take a miracle. But hallelujah, what is impossible for us is possible for God. Our impossibilities are opportunities for God to show off His abilities. You have to believe that something can happen. You have to believe that there is someone, something stronger than you are that can restore you to life and to sanity. Mark 9:23, all things are possible for the one who believes. And so basically, you got to have hope. You got to believe something can happen. According to Mark 6:1, the place where Jesus could do no mighty work, I find it interesting that it is His hometown. The people that were the closest to Christ had the hardest time believing in Christ. Jesus said a prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown and among his relatives and among his own family. Have you noticed the hardest miracles to believe in are the ones closest to home? You know, we can believe a stranger on TV can change, But with our own family, oh, no, they'll never change. They'll always be that way. Sometimes it's hard to have hope in a neighborhood that we've always lived in a dysfunctional home we grew up in. It's hard to believe in a miracle with the people we work with and the spouse maybe we live with. It's hard to believe in a miracle with the familiar because all we've ever seen is dysfunction. It can be hard to believe that something can happen differently. And often people think, well, yeah, but Jesus was different. I mean, he was the Son of God, right? No. Jesus, this is what's so cool about the gospel. This is one of the most beautiful, fundamental, important realities of the gospel, and that is Jesus was not exempt from his own rules. He was, is, and always will be one of us. So if you've ever been ostracized by your family, well, so was Jesus. Have you been rejected by friends, talked about, laughed about? So was Jesus. In John 1:11, it says, he came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. You see, they couldn't believe that a miracle, the miracle of the Messiah, could show up in their town, in their time, in their family, and in their lives. And let's be real, often we don't believe a miracle can happen in our town, our family, and in our lives. Nathanael, one of the disciples, when he hears about Jesus, he makes this statement, he didn't believe anything good could come out of Nazareth. Think about that. The greatest good to ever live came from a place no one believed anything good could come out of. And what's interesting about that is, according to John 21:2, Nathanael, the guy who says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? That guy, he lived and was from Cana. Well, Cana was Nazareth's neighbor. So Nathanael can't believe anything good can come out of something so close. Maybe you've heard about God changing other people's life, but you don't believe he can change your life. You know what? Hey, maybe you've heard about God, but you don't even know if you believe in a God. That's okay. If you can just believe a little bit, if you can just open yourself up to this idea that, you know what, maybe there is someone stronger than me, outside of me and my insanity, that can restore me to a better way of life. Because friends, if you can believe it, I promise you God can do it. And if Jesus could come out of Nazareth, something good can come out of your bad situation. Something good can come out of your life. If Jesus could break through the history of Nazareth, Jesus can break through your family history too. Stop telling God what he can and cannot do. Stop telling him who he can and cannot save. Let me tell you, if God rescued me from opiate addiction and continually, daily, continues to change my life, then he can do it for you. John 7:5 says, not even Jesus' brothers believed in him. Those that were the closest to the miracle missed it the most. Mark 3:21 says that when his family heard it, they went out to seize him, for they were saying, this guy is out of his mind. Now, this word for seize means to control. And so Jesus' own family tried to come between him and his plan. Don't let anything come between you and God's plan for you. Don't let someone else's lack of belief get in your way. Don't let the chain of someone else's dysfunction hold you back. Mark 6:6 says Jesus kept on teaching. So even though this town, he could do no mighty work there, Jesus didn't get discouraged. He didn't give up. He just kept on teaching. Maybe you've tried to quit 1,000 times. Keep on trying. Maybe you tried to pray 1,000,000,000 times. Keep on praying. Keep on hoping. You may have gone to treatment 12 times already. Give it another try. If you want God to do a mighty work in your life, then you have to believe that God can do it. You got to believe that a miracle can actually happen. Regardless of how bad the situation may look, if you can believe it, there is a power that can set you free from the dysfunction or the addiction in your life. There's this neat story in the Bible where the father of an epileptic brings his son to Jesus. Mark 9:23-24, Jesus says to him, if you can believe, all things are possible for the one who believes. And in verse 24, immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help my unbelief. So he believed a little bit, but you know what? All he's ever known is his son who had a condition, who had an ailment, who had a struggle. All he knew was the problem. That's what he had only known. His son was born with this condition, and so that's all he knew. So he had a little belief, but he had a little bit more unbelief. And so he recognized, he got honest. You know what? I think I believe a little. Help my unbelief. If you just have enough belief to open yourself up to something new, there is a power that can restore your sanity. I had recently been kicked out of a halfway house. This was towards the end of my addiction. I was living in my car. I had been in and out of treatment. I was on the verge of giving up. I couldn't go home for obvious reason. My wife couldn't trust me. My family couldn't trust me. Nobody could trust me. And I remember I was there living out of my car, and I had the opportunity to go to treatment. I had recently, the county sheriff had told me I had another warrant for my arrest, and that after Christmas I should turn myself in, because it was actually Christmas Eve, that I should probably turn myself in because after Christmas, because I was going to be going away for a little while. And so I had the opportunity of going to treatment, and I thought, well, go to jail, treatment, I think I'll go to treatment. And so I went to treatment, and I had been to treatment so many times before. I felt cursed. I felt like nothing was going to change. But I'll never forget it when I was in my car there, and I just felt completely spiritually, emotionally, mentally bankrupt. In the darkness, I heard God say, look, just believe. Just believe enough to try again. And I said, just like that father, I believe, but help my unbelief. And the little belief I had to give it another try was enough belief for the miracle to take place in my life. And that's when I started working that process of recovery, and my life began to be unchained from the addictions that I dealt with for years. In 1 Corinthians 15:7, it says, after Jesus' resurrection, he appeared to James and then to all the apostles. Now, there are a number of people in the Bible named James, but most people agree that this is Jesus' brother, which gives me hope. Because the same person that John 7:5 says didn't believe in Jesus, now believes in Jesus. He begins his letter in James 1:1. He says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. So so the same one who didn't believe in Jesus now believes in Jesus, and a miracle is taking place. He's unchained from his unbelief. According to the Jewish historian Josephus, in AD 62, a mob takes James, the brother of Jesus, to the top of the temple. They want him to renounce his belief, his faith, the same guy who used to not believe in Jesus, to give in, to give up. But James looks out, and it's recorded in history that he says, why do you ask me about the Son of Man? He dwells in heaven at the right hand of the mighty power, and he will come in the clouds of heaven. He did not renounce his belief. No longer is he chained by hopelessness and fear. He's no longer chained by closed-mindedness. Belief has opened a door to a new reality. Where once no mighty work could be done, now a miracle is taking place. Belief has broken through the paralyzing chain of James' unbelief. Hope has broken through hopelessness. And that's why James is the one who writes, but let me ask in faith, without doubting. For the one who doubts is like the wave on the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. Stop putting limitations on God's power. Stop getting in the way of your miracle. Don't let doubt and unbelief stop you. What is impossible for you is possible for God. Look at James, the brother of Jesus. Man, if the kingdom of God could show up in his time, in his town, in his home, in his brother, then the kingdom of God can arrive in your time, in your town, in your home, and in your life.
Thank you for the message, Richie. It is now time for our Q&A, and I'm here again with our guest, Matt Floyd, and he would love to answer a couple of your questions. If you've not had a chance to post your questions, please do so in the chat right now. So Matt, how has your relationship with your mom been now? Has your relationship been restored? Tell us about that.
My mother, eventually, she did clean her life up. She went through the Hands Up program, which is a real good program, and she cleaned her life up, and me and her have a wonderful relationship now. I stop and see her every day after work, and if she's at work, I stop and see her and talk to her, and she's proud of me, and I'm very proud of her. We didn't always get along. I think it's because we were both a lot alike in a lot of ways, as far as our addictions and how far we were lost in those, and how far away we were from the Lord. And I'm very proud of her and what she's accomplished in her life.
Wow. So another question that our viewers had is here, how long have you been clean now?
8 years.
Wow, that's a good amount of time. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. And how is your life now that you've been free? Like,
It's totally different. My life, I didn't have any structure in my life before that. Everything was just fun and games, but really it wasn't. Now, I have meaning in my life. I have a purpose. Like I said, I'm married, and I have a home, and I've got a career, and everything's just going great in my life. Now, I still have issues and problems, like anybody else, but the difference I have is I have Jesus, and when I have those problems, I try to give them to Him. There is some things that, like I told you earlier, you got to give it to Him and not take it back. And part of the problem is I like to take things back and try to control it myself, but my life is just night and day different. It's totally, I have friends that I knew, like I said, I left my hometown and come up here, and they say, "Oh yeah, have you not talked to Matt?" And oh, he's married now. And they're like, "Married? Matt married? No way!" And he's not in jail somewhere. We thought he was in jail. They can't believe where I'm at in life. They never seen it. They never seen this side of me, and they never thought that I would accomplish anything in life. So
wow,
it's been great.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much for joining us here this evening, and be willing to share your story, some personal things with our audience as they're learning to become set free. So again, thank you. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Those were some very good questions that you had asked us, and now let's see who our winner is for tonight's drawing. Our winner is Chelsea Chastain. Let's congratulate Chelsea in the comments, and Chelsea will be contacting you to get your information so that you can send this book out. We can send this book out to you. And remember, to be entered into this drawing, you need to register at unchainedevents.org/Bryant/register. You will get a daily email or text message with a link before the program. Click on the link and you'll be entered into that evening's giveaway. Now, I don't know about you, but I have been richly blessed this evening. Don't forget to join us tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time when we will look at our next breakthrough in living an unchained life. We will also be joined by Lane Buttram. He is going to share some of his story and how he has broken free from the chains that once held him back. Have a good evening and God bless.